It's wonderful to be here. I want to thank you all for having me. And I thought I might just start out with a personal story, but I think it reflects on the deep-seated partnership and alliance that we share between Jews and Christians. It's a story about my two sons. They're both college students. And on October the 7th, 2023, we know what happened. My wife and I happened to be visiting them the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, after all of this had taken place. They go to school at Harvard. The campus is a complete mess. Billboards and signs, student protesters. My heart was broken to see what had happened, and frankly, to see the depth of antisemitism that exists in parts of this nation. My wife and I were departing that afternoon on Friday. We had lunch with the boys, and I just said, as any parent would, "What are you two doing tonight?" Now, keep in mind, my boys are 6'3" and 6'4". They're on the Harvard rugby team. And they said, "Dad, we're going to Shabbat tonight. We're going to Shabbat to show our friends that we love them." And I hope you'll get this from me. Christians love Jews. There could be no stronger place than where we are right now in Nashville, Tennessee to witness that. You know, I think about the partnership that we have, and I think about it in multiple layers. I'm a U.S. Senator. I'm on the Foreign Relations Committee. We think often about our mutual defense. And I think about a trip that I took to Israel in May of 2021, almost on the heels, just a couple of days after Hamas had launched an 11-day war on Israel. I saw the Patriot missile batteries that had protected me and my family when I was ambassador to Japan. Those Patriot batteries protected Israel in an amazingly effective way. That's American technology and Israeli partnership that did a wonderful job, but not every rocket was stopped. I went to visit some of the places that were hit. It was devastating. And I thought to myself, how did this happen? How did this happen? Well, go back with me in time, just a little bit, to the presidency of one Barack Obama. Obama and a friend of his from law school, Rob Malley, entered into what was a terrible nuclear deal. They released $100 billion to Iran in sanctions relief. What happened? Iran immediately used those funds to rebuild and reposition its proxies throughout the region. How do you think Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis got stood up? The IRGC with its power. That's because the United States of America, in a very misguided way, allowed them to be funded, and that's exactly what happened. A new president came into office, and in 2018, President Trump tore up that Iran deal. We put in place maximum pressure, and we began to bring the situation back to a state of calm. You might remember what happened to Soleimani, too. Things were going, I thought, in the right direction. When I was serving as ambassador to Japan, my job was to get the Japanese to stop buying Iranian crude oil. Not an easy set of conversations, but they did, and this happened all around the world. Maximum pressure was working. But elections have consequences. Joe Biden comes into office, immediately brings Rob Malley back in and puts him in charge. What does Malley do? He ends all of the sanctions enforcement. What happens almost immediately after that? Hamas. Whether it's the 11-day war or the tragedy that happened on October the 7th, that was enabled by the United States allowing Israel to regroup, to restock, and put its batteries of terrorists back on the ground. But as I mentioned, elections do have consequences. What happened again when we had an election in 2024? Something has dramatically changed now. If you think about it, President Trump was able to put in the conditions for a ceasefire that allowed us to get all of our hostages back, living and sadly some dead. But that only happened because we stood strong. You know, it takes decisive action to deal with a terrorist theocracy like we have in Iran. And I hope that the decisive action that Iran witnessed last year, when President Trump used bunker bombs to take out massive components of their nuclear program, I hope they remember this. I hope they remember what happened in Venezuela. All of this was done without a loss of a single American life. And while the Iranians are back at the table, they're having diplomatic meetings literally today. We're not going to take this diplomatic rope-a-dope that they've given to our predecessors. They love to talk and tap us along. I don't think that's going to happen this time. I think if you're watching, paying attention, you'll see that the second carrier strike force is making its way to the region. The reports are as a third of our naval assets are going to be in a position. I'll just say this. President Trump knows what he wants. He knows how to create the leverage to get it. And the Iranians should be watching. The Iranians should be watching. So I'm optimistic that we're going to deal with the situation by dealing with the root cause of the situation, and that's Iran. And if we do, I think that will allow us to focus our partnership on what are truly the foundational principles of Western civilization. And I might just touch on a few of those with you because it heartens me to think about where we can turn our focus. First is the sanctity of human life. No government grants that, and no government can take it away from us. The principle of loving your neighbor as yourself. It's rooted in Leviticus. It was reaffirmed by Jesus, and it should carry our principles as we move forward every single day, beyond our own self-interest, to be thinking about how we can care for others. That generosity is inherently American, but I think it's felt very strongly between both Jews and Christians. Individual liberty and freedom of conscience, another foundational principle. What does that mean? The law applies equally to all of us, whether king or commoner. It's a sense that those who hold power cannot use that power to wield it against their enemies, but that we'll all be treated fairly and the same under the rule of law. Moral responsibility and stewardship, another very fundamental principle. Going all the way back to Genesis, God has entrusted man to steward resources carefully. Not to harvest, not to decay, but to build for the next generation. This convocation here today, this meeting here today is going to allow us, I hope, to build for the generations to come, and we will do it ever more strongly if we do it together, arm in arm, Jews and Christians alike. Thank you for having me here today.